Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 99, October 23rd, 2020. A Journey into the Heart, a real life story with Elizabeth. This episode is about an experience of pregnancy loss, child of light communication, and healing upon the path towards parenthood. I have a special guest episode, and my title, I usually have a title that has a bunch of reflective questions, but this I call the real life story, and this is an experience that someone has had connecting with their child of light in many different beautiful, powerful, and psychic ways. And her name is Fiona Prendergast, and she is living in, where do you live again?
Dublin in Ireland.
Yes, she's on the other side. I want to say of the planet. Sounds so galactic. And I absolutely adore and love Fiona. I remember when I first met her, connecting with her daughter, I just knew instantly. I was like, this woman there's something intuitive and very powerful about her. And I think I even may have said that at the end of our session. And I was like, I wanted her to be a part of my community somehow, to be of support to others. And she has in such beautiful ways. And now she joins the monthly healing circle, and I made her a moderator of the Facebook group, which is the Afterlife of Spirit Baby, just to continue to connect with people in that compassionate, loving space. But Fiona, I'd also like for you to introduce yourself and even introduce Elizabeth.
Absolutely. Well, that's quite an introduction, and might I say so the love for you is returned in equal measure. You definitely were a pivotal part in my healing journey. So, yes, I'm Fiona. I'm a 41-year-old. I call myself a girl. I suppose I'm really a woman living in Dublin, but I'm from Cork. I should qualify that because there's a big rivalry between Cork and Dublin. And I have one daughter who is living with me, an 8-year-old girl called Una. And she has a little sister, Elizabeth, who I like to say she was born into eternal life on the 28th of November last year. I never considered that she was born or died on the same day. I always kind of say, nope, she was born into eternal life, which I think is a nice way of putting it. And I have a memorial card, and that's what it says on it. So Elizabeth was an IVF baby, so very, very wanted baby. Was very delighted when I got pregnant. But I didn't feel the same as when I was pregnant with my daughter. I put it down to maybe that I was a bit older, but I just couldn't picture having another little girl or another girl child to grow up with. And I commented on it a lot throughout my pregnancy. My sisters used to say, oh, you're always saying that. But I did, even at the scans. I was always kind of waiting to hear something. I just didn't feel the same. And I also could feel a connection with someone, but I didn't feel a connection with someone who was going to be staying. Of course, this is all the benefit of hindsight, but I actually felt like that throughout the pregnancy. And when I got to the 32 weeks mark, I was thinking, oh, I'm home free. I've nothing to worry about. Oh, this is all just in my head. And I was waddling around for the next 6-7 weeks and really just preparing for Christmas, to be honest. It was the end of November. And I can remember just one day waking up and thinking, oh, she hasn't been that active today. oh, of course, she's much bigger now, so she won't be moving as much. And but there was something in the back of my mind that was like, oh, this is a bit weird. Now, the strange thing is even though that was playing in the back of my mind, it took 3 days till I actually went to the hospital. Now, I went to the hospital, and of course, there was no heartbeat, and like very tragic and everything. But what struck me from word go is that I was talking to her. Oh, I was furious at the time. I was like, oh, why couldn't you have just stayed? And then I was like really kind of like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. This is why I was feeling so strange throughout my pregnancy. But then throughout that grief and kind of anger, I was like, oh, who are you talking to? And I was like going, because you wouldn't be spending this much time or get this passionate and angry at someone that doesn't exist. And that really kind of struck me. And this was even before I delivered. It took 2 days from finding out she had no heartbeat to actually delivering. And I was like, this is interesting. I've always been spiritual. And I did have a very spiritual experience like 5 years prior with my deceased grandmother. So I knew that there was more to life. But what struck me is I felt very bonded to this person to the point that I was very cross that they weren't staying. So I went into labor and I had Elizabeth, and everyone always says when you have a stillbirth, the moment that they're born, it's actually a real very, very tragic because there's silence. But what actually happened in my case is that the energy of the room just absolutely changed. It was like we were in the presence of angels. I thought I was just high on gas and air, but my sisters were there. My partner, John, Elizabeth's dad, was there, and the midwife was there, and they were like, what's this? This is like, we were all literally like in awe and just this most loving, peaceful, happy, beautiful presence. And it only stayed for around half an hour. You nearly felt when it went away, but it was enough for me it ignited something in me going, wow, there really is a spirit world. She really is here. There really are angels. You knew all this, but well, now you really, really know. And if she still exists, I still want to have a relationship with her. And I'm going to do all my research, and I'm going to find her and find how I can communicate with her. So that's what kind of brought me into this whole kind of area. And when I say brought me into this whole kind of area, it's just a way of being for me now. I do have a relationship with Elizabeth in spirit, and I do feel her energy, and I can connect with her. I have a tendency to ramble, so Kelly, you put in.
Yeah, I want to pause you for a moment. I know, because I love listening to you speak. It's so poetic and creative, and I just love your accent and just your energy. And I want to kind of reverse a little bit. Yeah, I want to reverse a little bit because, that moment, which is where you had an experience of beauty and grace, but at the same time, of course, it's tragedy and shock. Your child is not in their earth body. But I almost want to like sit and feel more into that. So you give birth to your daughter, and then there was like this something. It sounds like you were saying like there's something different in the vibration around everybody's energy and consciousness and the feeling. What do you feel that connection was? Her soul, her spirit, her angels? How can you put some more words to that? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I fully believe it was her soul with the soul of my spirit family, my grandmother in particular. And I feel that there was an angelic presence to it as well. My guardian angel has always been very good to me. I've always prayed to my guardian angel. But I do feel that there's a difference between the angelic realm and the spiritual realm, and this was definitely spirit as opposed to angelic. It's just the way every human, you meet someone and you get their energy. It's a different kind of energy, isn't it? And it just was a beautiful, very loving, peaceful energy. The energy actually that I felt around me a little bit when I was pregnant, but like magnified, as if it had just broken through the veil. And I think it was definitely Elizabeth, with the help of my grandmother, really trying to kind of say, hey, look, this love and energy is here for you. I'm not the physical. I know, beautiful baby, that you felt and you really wanted, but this is still here. You have to, and it really separated the physical from the spiritual. It was like, the physical is lifeless. It is not here for you now. But the beauty of the spirit remains, and it's in this room. You need to do your thing. You need to grieve your physical because you're a human and you're having a physical experience. But you've got to remember that that is not all that there is. There's something way bigger and way more beautiful than you could ever know. But I'm giving you a taste for it. Come find me and come know that it's there. That's kind of what I was getting. And I'm very, like, I follow my intuition, and that's what I was getting. I understood. It wasn't like I was Delilah. It was very distressing and heartbreaking to have this beautiful, like, perfectly formed, absolutely beautiful, physical baby, that I just would have absolutely adored. But I very, very quickly knew that my Elizabeth was a spirit. And, you know, I think most people who have been at a funeral and seen a dead body will know exactly what I'm talking about. And when you look at a body in a coffin, you realize, oh, that's not them. That's because their spirit is not in the body anymore. And I got to experience both her spirit and her physical in that moment, I think. And I got to separate the two. And I've always separated the two. And I know we spoke about that before, Kelly, where everyone calls, like, Elizabeth baby Elizabeth. And I look at her photos. I actually look at her photos with Elizabeth kind of in my consciousness. And we look at her together. And I don't think, oh, there's my Elizabeth. I think Elizabeth is a spirit, a much, much bigger thing. Just like I don't look at myself in the mirror sometimes and think, oh, that's all me. I don't think it's all me. I just think it's the current physical manifestation of who I am.
Yeah, I feel like you said something important. I wanna like go into actually two different things, because I feel like this could be really helpful for those that are tuning in. And you know, maybe you've had that experience, or they understand the depths of loss in different forms of birth loss. But everybody's story is so unique to the moment and to what's, you know, what it's about and what's being experienced, what's being missed sometimes, or what's allowed to be received. And one of the things you said, I'm curious because you have, you know, your daughter's here earthside, your elder daughter, and what I mean, I you know, every birth is so completely different. But, you know, you had the experience of birthing a daughter that stayed in her earth body and then a daughter that didn't. Can you even look at both those and go, I mean, it could be like night and day because of the timelines and because of their energies. Can you bring any comparison to the experience of going, because you know what it's like on both ends?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. What actually struck me is the physical side of it is exactly very similar. It was almost an identical labor in that respect. Not just the pains, but how quickly that I went dilated and how quickly she came out in just one push. It's very similar, actually, to birthing a live baby, because you've waited, like, however many months to see them. And when they come out, you're just like, oh, my God, you've got your lips, your nose, you're really analyzing them, you know, like, inspecting them. And those kind of, like, that kind of excitement and love, you know, this, you know, the moment you see them, this love, you know, that you feel is actually very similar to when they are alive. You know, the similarities. I wonder why I've never asked anyone else who's had a live birth if they felt the same. But it's more similar than you could realize. You've the same pride, the same love, same obsession. What do they look like? Possibly a little bit more manic because you realize you've very limited time, so you're really trying to love on them. You know, you have the same protection, you know, that mother feeling. You want to bring them up close to you. You don't want people to be touching them too much, you know, taking very good care of them. I was very protective of her, and even, you know, telling people to keep it down. You know, I know those things, like, it sounds kind of crazy, but it is kind of cute, that protection, nurturing. Put it this way, I wouldn't be afraid to birth. Like, of course, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I don't want to have another stillbirth, but the actual, the love is overriding. You know, it's afterwards. You know, when you don't get to take the baby home, that's the horrendous part. That's the big difference. But the actual mothering and loving, it's quite similar. I know that it's like absolutely distressing for a lot of people, but I mean, particularly if you have a more advanced, like they're like over 30 weeks and they look like babies. They just, you know, of course, Elizabeth looked very well. There's some babies that are stillborn and their skin is very macerated, or they don't look as well, and you know, that could be a difference because she looked quite similar to Una. So I made it a little bit softer. But, you know, at the end of the day, that's your baby. You think it's the most beautiful girl or boy in the world, and you love on it, and you do not want to give it back. I mean, even when they go, you know, it's like, oh, could you just keep them like that forever? You know, I mean, the thought will definitely cross any parent of a stillbirth child. You know, is there any way, you know, you could keep them like that forever and just have them in the family? You know, so I don't think. I think the coming home part is the definitive. Oh, you know, that's where the changes, like the real, oh God, this is not comparable.
Yeah. So something, you know, again, you're saying in there, and also I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but let me try to bring my thoughts back. When you were talking, I don't know if you've heard of the book, and this could be an interesting book for anybody to read that has birth loss. It is a very intense read. It's called Ghost Belly, and it's by
I've never heard
Elizabeth Hyman. I think it's more available because, you know, I trained as a death midwife, and in the bereavement community, there's books and things that people recommend, and some people recommend it. I recommend it to people. It depends on the person, to be honest, because it is a very intense read. And by that, you know, you're really going into the story of this woman who had a home birth stillbirth, and really doing a lot of research around, was it preventable or not preventable, of course, right? And this, I believe she was in America, so there's different kind of rules in the way they look at things. And it was, she talks at this one part, which I thought was so profound, was she was able, and she shares this, to go to the funeral parlor, I don't know what they call it, funeral place, and take her baby and wear her son on a like a carrier and walk around the neighborhood. And she had to do that for quite some time because she didn't, I can't remember exactly, but something happened where she didn't get to have, we'll say, his body really right away. And so there was such a deep level of healing for that. And she was even feeling at first, what are people going to think, or what is this? And some people would think all these very judgmental things, even now, if it's not the experience or you don't understand, you know, how important it is to be able to, as you know, as you're sharing right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, so I got to keep Elizabeth for 5 days in the hospital. We were able to spend as long as we want with her, and they bring in these cuddle cots, they're called, and they keep the body preserved. And right. I can totally, it's very healing spending time with your baby. I would highly recommend to anyone to spend as much time as you want, and take as many pictures and make as many memories, because they bring so much comfort later on, and they also help bring closure. By the end, and by closure I don't mean closure in the typical sense, but by the end of the 5 days with Elizabeth in hospital, I realized that we were in a bubble and that it was going to have to change. But I was ready for it to change. I understood, I not just because her body was deteriorating a little bit, but also just because I was like, no, you need to get back to real life now, and you need to face back into real life. Whereas if I didn't get to spend that time with her, I know I would have been like, oh, I didn't let her put on my engagement ring, or oh, I didn't get this photo, or oh, I didn't read her a story or sing her a song or have a little dance with her. I did everything. I literally, I read stories, sang songs, had dances, and now I have our song. I have different memories. I have big, huge photo book. Every part of her body I photographed, so I know what it looks like from her tongue down to her private parts, her bum and stuff, And these things are important. They are less important to me now, the more my relationship with Elizabeth has grown in spirit, but they were very healing and very therapeutic at the time, and it helps me to say goodbye to the physical, knowing that I had done these things and I had fulfilled a little bit part of the mothering contract that you want to do, love on your child and know their body inside out and dress them and bath them if you can,
Yeah,
so I do
those things are all, yeah. Sorry.
I was just saying, I do understand it's the walking around, I probably would have done the same. if I could have
I saw that.
that.
I know. I saw that as beautiful and so necessary. I didn't think it was strange at all. I thought, oh, this is really deep. And and like you talk about the cuddle cots, and even I know when I was training as a death midwife, and I'm trained in it. I haven't actually. There's a few different parts in the training, but in the final training I did was the aftercare, which was preparation of the body. And I actually volunteered. But when COVID happened, everything, the whole death industry changed. But I actually volunteered because my teacher, I told her I was interested I never finished the internship part, to be of service for children or even stillbirth funerals, like home funerals, to be a part of that with the parents and to be a part of that as a volunteer. And so I'm still holding that energy, but I go, well, it'll have its right timing, I'm sure. And so we'll see.
And you will be wonderful. And let
I'm
me
a little
tell you,
nervous.
Kelly,
I'm not going to lie. Because I
know,
see people in grief, and I'm like, how do I take care of them? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very special, space and role. I have to say, there was 2 amazing midwives that took absolute incredible care of Elizabeth when she was first getting changed, because her skin was starting to slip a little bit. We hadn't the cuddle cot at that point. And I'll never forget their face, their kindness, their love, their energy. It was beautiful. And I have to say, I'm all, someone with your amazing energy and stuff, that would be beautiful. So I hope you do pursue it. And I always think the world will present the opportunity at the right time, and you'll make a big difference as you do in your other areas.
I hope so. But what I want to say to people that are tuning in, and that maybe they have a friend or they've had their own loss, and there is this is where it gets confusing for people, because you talk about preservation of the body, that there are actually ways to preserve the body for even more than 5 days, but most people need 3 to 5 days. There's something around that energy, is what my my mentor would share, around certain this, releasing and surrendering. But in this book, I think she goes longer. But there are ways to preserve the body, even at home. And I'm saying that because I know a lot of people don't realize that, even for babies, even for adults, there's actually a technique with the way you line the ice packs on the body underneath that actually does preserve it for even weeks, to be honest. But you can't miss that preservation. You can't go like a day or a few hours. It's every few hours. There's a certain system the way you put the ice packs on the body. But just I feel like that, to me, is important to know, because it's something I didn't know. And I thought, and a lot of people don't know that, like, because let's say a day goes by and you're like, I need more time. Of course. Yeah. If there's ice, there's time. Let's just say that.
Yes,
to be
absolutely.
able to, whatever it is for people.
Yeah, and I have to say something. Elizabeth actually changed in features and stuff in the 5 days. She, the way a lot of newborns, they get kind of prettier as the days go on, and it's not just mother saying it.
Yeah.
Everyone said it. And
no, you're right.
Yeah, no, all my photos that I have up of her are around the day 4 because I was like she looked even like nicer than the day 1 or 2. And the other thing I wanted to say for anyone in that situation is we had loads of family, and I know this is hard during COVID, so apologies if anyone's listening and they don't have the opportunity to do this, but for me, which was a huge comfort, was that all my family came up and lots of my friends came in. I knew I'd be talking about Elizabeth forevermore, so I wanted her to be real to a lot of people, and that was really healing for me, my family, and my friends, because they feel like that they met her and, that they have a bond with her by meeting her. And it was very special for them because when you were in her presence, you kind of felt honored because she just had this beautiful, energy. You felt you were in the presence. A lot of people say angels, and I don't mind people saying angels, but of course angels are a different realm. They're not spirits, but so I was very proud and to show her off, and I think people do be proud. You've made this beautiful person, so celebrate them and show them off and take as many videos and photos as you're comfortable with. And then if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. You don't have to do anything. You're already going to be suffering the most horrendous loss, so just do whatever makes you feel comfortable. But if you are the type person that would feel comfortable, I would totally encourage it.
So I want to hear too, there's a few different areas to go into, and I've got to keep track of how this energy is moving, because we could talk about this for hours, because it's so powerful, so interesting, so fascinating, and so healing. What you were talking about, and we've talked about this even in the circle, about a baby being, right? It's like, oh, Elizabeth's more than just this little child energy, and I've actually seen that with my one-on-one sessions. When I was supporting more, I don't do one-on-one in the same way that I do it now, but when I was doing that, I met a lot of babies born, either through stillbirth or just almost like, they kind of touch the energy of being on Earth side. It's very different for me than a miscarriage or termination. It's a very different energy and vibration. And there's something, again, that to me, there's a certain level of power in the energy of children that are literally, I call it touching the earth for a moment, and then, not being here. And so I've seen where, I remember the years ago, this woman who had medical negligence of her really perfect son, right? And in the beginning of the session, I saw a man, a young, beautiful man, and I was like, I was a little confused. I was like, but it was his energy that he has evolved and grown, and he's so much more than this little baby. And, not to say that we can't say our babies or, we got to call them men or, women, but there is something I feel like that's important that you shared about seeing the connection of the energy and how it develops and how there's an expansion.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for people to understand is it's not even a case of like, oh, man, child, woman. They will present how you would imagine or how you would want. And Elizabeth has actually confirmed that to me, because very quickly, and I said this to you I'm back in January, I felt that Elizabeth was wiser than me, and it felt more like that she was the mother and that I was the child, and she was helping me through my grief. And but she was presenting as a young girl in dreams. I've got some quite mediumistic friends and stuff, and she would present as a young girl. But in my head, when I was talking to her, or I was like, "Oh, you're so wise. You're not a you're not a young you're not a young girl. You're a wise, advanced soul," is what I would say. And then eventually, I got the answer in telepath into my head. I didn't read it anywhere. It was that age is an earthly thing because time is, but in the spirit realm there isn't any time. So that they can present, if they will present how you are most comfortable with. If you want to be a little girl, she'll be a little girl, and that the energy really that the energy is still the energy. It's not based on time or age. And my grandmother comes to me a lot, and she comes to me when she looks around 40. And of course, I never knew my grandmother when she looked around 40, and I used to be getting very annoyed. I knew her from pictures, that she was presenting in this way, because I wanted my grandmother, I wanted to see my grandmother as I remembered her. And then she said, "Oh, this is how I present," and she was like, "I can present whatever way you want, but this is how I choose," So we all get to choose, I guess, our favorite manifestation and presentation of the physical. It's interesting. Gone a bit off tangent there, but
no, that was perfect. Thanks for sharing that. I want to shift in a little bit over to women, men. They reach out, and they're always very, in the Afterlife of Spirit Baby group, and just privately, like looking for connection with their child, like looking for outside messages, internal messages, and they feel, that their baby's not there, which is so unfortunate, right? Because we know that there's something happening, and that inner psychic part of us, that spiritual part of us, is really where the deeper listening comes. But I want to hear if you can just share even little moments or stories that were so profound to you, and even subtle, small things that were like, oh, of course, you're building this relationship and connection with Elizabeth all the time. Is there, anything you can share that really feels that could be of, service to others?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The biggest, I'll share some stories, but the biggest thing that I can say to people when they're looking for a connection or for signs, we always look externally. We look for the butterflies, for the clouds, and you're looking external, but the butterflies and the clouds are there, but you have to be looking internally. You have to be feeling. Spirit is all within. I'm not saying our spirit is in our body. It's not. It's around us. But for us to really be in tune with it, we have to go inward. And I think part of the problem is that people go outwards. They're kind of looking outside, where it's more hectic. But when you get in tune with your own energy, you start, and your own internal world, you start actually realizing when other energies or other thoughts that are not necessarily your own, that's when you really start to go, oh, I wasn't even thinking that, or oh, why did I look up to the sky at that particular point? There was no reason for me to look up and see that there was a heart in the cloud, or so it can start in any way. For me, I've been quite lucky. Elizabeth was very show-offy at the start, and I do think it's like everything. Not everyone has the same skill set, and not all spirits have the same skill set either. No one being is the same. So if you're not getting any signs, it doesn't mean that you're not loved as much. It just could mean that, you're just not as in tune with this, and that's not your path, this journey. Or it could be that your child is practicing and will eventually get there. So everything changes. So I've no doubt if you want to connect with your spirit child that you can, and I've no doubt that they always want to connect because they're always there whether you can feel them or not. So it's not a question of they're too busy. They can be in many different, they're not restricted by distance or time, or so they don't have those restrictions. And as soon as as soon as you accept those things, then you don't feel like you're a burden calling on them, or you don't feel that you're a nuisance asking for signs, or, because sometimes people do. I mean, I know my partner did feel bad kind of going, oh, but she's a baby. And I was like, no, they love this because they're watching over us all the time. So they want to communicate. So the best way, for me, it's a question of, like, I wanted something that I could actually work on. So I understood that the spiritual realm is a higher vibrating realm than the earthly realm. So as physical human beings, we vibrate on a much lower level. And as spiritual beings, they vibrate at a much higher vibrational level. So if you think of it like that, it's not that they're high away from us, it's just that they vibrate. We're all energy, everything is energy, and some things vibrate very low and dense and are like physical, and some people things vibrate very high. So I realized that, if Elizabeth is vibrating very high, then I need to try and raise my vibration, which it sounds like a challenge when you're deep in grief. But I figured if it was going to help with the connection, it's something that I will work to do. And to this day, I have to work at it and remind myself if I go down lower, my connection with Elizabeth won't be as high. If I even do a meditation, I'll vibrate up quicker. So if you're trying to improve your connection, the best thing that you can do is try to raise your vibration. And this isn't like a hippy-dippy thing. This is actually real. If you can raise your vibration through meditation, if that makes you gawk like it did me, because I didn't think I could meditate, just go on YouTube. There's free guided meditations, and all you have to do is just lie down. Anyone can lie down. You can do it. And just
I love that.
let it happen. Anyway, people say, oh, I can't meditate. It's like, Can you lie down? Yes. Can you listen? Yes. Then you can meditate. That's all you need to do. You don't need to do anything.
Yeah, that's so helpful. That's so helpful to share, because that's what I was wondering. I was going to ask you next. Was like, well, how do people do that? But then you already answered it, because that's what people will make up excuses. And, as we spoke about recently, about even grieving, like, yes, there is a level of grief that feels like you're in that bottom of the dark pit. It's okay. It's okay to be there, and it's not, there's not a race to some finish line of like, well, I have to get there. And this is why I feel like the inner practice, right, the meditative practice, the practice of connection, to continue to, as you say, build that vibrational space so you can, go there. And it sounds like you've been experimenting a lot with that. You've been feeling kind of, and that's a part of it.
Totally. And even the thing is if you are deep in grief, you have no energy. So what do? You go lie down. What do? You put on the music or the meditation. You start raising your vibration. Even though you don't realize it, you will, because you don't. It's actually perfect for a deep in grief. It's perfect for even anyone who's like really, really crying or really just can't get out of bed or do anything. Put music on. Put a guided meditation on, and you don't have to do anything, and you will be picked up. It happens. It's almost impossible. It's like what they say, if you're just sitting there now, and if you smile and without doing anything, it raises your vibration. Even if you're in the worst mood, if you're in the worst mood and you fake a smile, it's something. It's a mind trick. So you have to really want to do it. And the driving force for me was I really, really wanted to connect. I read loads and loads and loads of books on the afterlife and souls, and so I was very sure that it existed. I had plenty opportunity to know as well that it did. But the connection then, and you connecting, is you have to raise your vibration. And some people vibrate naturally, and it's not about raising your vibration. Isn't about like just being really happy. Of course, you're vibing higher when you are happy, but you can, even if you're not happy, or even if you're deep in grief, you can raise your vibration. I would actually go so far as to say is in the first 6 months after Elizabeth passed, when I was deep in grief, my vibration was much higher. because I was off work. I was on maternity leave. And I had the time to invest in all that, and it was wonderful. But I was way more deep in grief. At the moment, I'm coming up to Elizabeth's 1-year anniversary. I'm not as deep in grief, and I'm very, very busy. So my vibration actually isn't as high as it could be if I was putting the investment into myself and doing the meditation like very regularly, getting out in nature, and listening to really nice music, candles, crystals, Reiki, anything that suits the soul, clearing your chakras. You know, it's soul food, you know, it's looking after your soul. Of course, exercising and eating healthy and staying away from alcohol and stuff all helps as well to raise the vibration. So, it's, you know, anyone can do it. You know, it's just like anything. You can't just do a one guided meditation and think, oh, my vibration is raised. No, it's not. You need to keep it up. It's like one day of dieting isn't going to make you lose the weight or keep the weight off. You have to actually bring it into your daily routine, you know. Now, but here's the funny thing. So even though my vibration isn't as high as it would have been when I was really, really connecting, I can actually still, because I got used to when I was in those moments, in those meditations, I got very used to Elizabeth's energy, the feel of it, and then she started to put tingles so now even if I'm not like vibing high, I can feel her energy. I sometimes she comes like she's been there a few times throughout this interview. She's delighted with this, by the way.
Oh, yay!
I know. I'm like, okay, I know you're there. Very proud to talk to her. But I can feel her now, and it's wonderful. And she's also, because she's a spirit, she's very, very, very loving and kind. So if I get in any way angry about anything, she'll immediately come and do the tingles and bring me down. It's like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to say anything. So she's actually making me a much nicer person as well. And that's incredible. Like trust me on this. I'm not imagining any of this. There's very few people that I listen to or can bring me down if I want to say something. I've got a lot of feisty Irish in me, you know. So I haven't spoken about any of my signs, but I could give some examples if you want, Kelly, or what you think.
Yeah, we're coming up to the end, so I think we're going to save that for next time, or even, you know, I want to promote people that are in that space of loss or knowing someone that's really building a sacred connection with grieving and building that awareness with Child of Light, because you do offer a lot of your stories. I feel like people can really sit in and read them in the Afterlife Spirit Baby Facebook group, and you have so many different, and it's something, it's nice to be able to sit there and look, and you have put a beautiful picture with your story, and I know you shared stories of jewelry, stories of getting an addition to the house as a puppy, you know, you
Molly,
share stories of, so you share different stories, and so I want to really, and you can get that, obviously if you do a Facebook look, but also in the podcast, on my website. I'll give you the easy website, spiritbabymedium.com, where you can find on the Spirit Baby Radio podcast page. I always post it there, and you'll see there's links to get to the different groups. But I want to leave, I would love to leave now with Fiona, the final words. What final words can you leave everybody with?
The final words I have, and this is the most important part, is that gratitude is the best way of feeling spirit and getting spiritual. If you are feeling grateful, there's very little room for fear. So if you're feeling grateful, and you might, sometimes you've got to fake it. Sometimes if you say you're not feeling it, but say, oh, I'm grateful that you still exist, or I'm grateful that you're still in my life. And spirit seems to love gratitude. And for some reason they can break through, you know. So if you are getting little signs, always thank you, always so grateful. even if you think it's in your head, still keep the gratitude coming. You'll be very surprised what will come afterwards. And it might seem, but I'm so grateful for Elizabeth. I thank her like nearly a few times every day, and she keeps coming on strong. And sometimes like we think life is very tough at times and stuff, but everyone has something to be grateful for, even if it's just the experience. But find stuff to be grateful. Keep a gratitude diary. If you have to train yourself to think, I don't keep a gratitude diary. I gratitude has become a way of being for me, and that honestly is if you do take anything from what I say, try and find something to be grateful for in everything, in every experience. Every time something bad happens, look for something in there, a lesson or whatever it is, that you met someone or, whatever it is, find something to be grateful for about in that moment, and life will start shifting for you, or you will start like changing your vibration.
Well, thank you so much, Fiona, for joining this space and sharing your heartfelt story and experience with Elizabeth.
Thank you for having us. She was delighted and I was delighted. It's a pleasure. And if anyone wants to PM me off the back of any of this, you know where to find me on Kelly has shared the details. It'd be a pleasure.
The Afterlife of Spirit Baby, yes, Facebook group, which is run by me and Lori Larson, who is also a birth loss mama. And we have Fiona, and we have another moderator that have just recently built our little family and community of love and connection and support. Thank you for joining episode 99, October 23rd, 2020. If you like my podcast, please subscribe, leave reviews. And I do have a journal that is available. It is called Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby Journal. And I also have, and that's for conception and pregnancy. And I have my newest addition to my little Spirit Baby Medium family is Spirit Baby Oracle Cards, Answers from Spirit Baby, which are highly supportive in connecting with Spirit Baby, Child of Light in conception, pregnancy, and even birth loss. Thank you all for joining.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.